is this year the German Dacia Duster, the Opel Frontera, a small affordable SUV, or you can also say the British Dacia Duster, because this one is also sold as Vauxhall Frontera. And it's starting at 24,000 euros here for this little fella. But how capable is it? What can it do? How good is it in comparison to the Dacia Duster and also in comparison to other small vehicles? I'm Thomas, this is Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the new Opel or Vauxhall Frontera here in the Opel trim here with the Opel Blitz and rather closed front. This one will be available as petrol hybrid and also as a fully electric vehicle. This one here, the hybrid. However, it rather depends on what trim you pick it in, so you can have different design packages. This one is here rather, let's say, an off-roadish design pack, soon more to that. Then here, this honeycomb structure in the lower part, so it looks quite strong, although it is still quite small, of course. Then you have LED lamps, but no matrix LED available or something like that. And pretty cool, I feel, 16-inch steel wheels. This is then the base, and yeah, looks pretty cool also in the white trim. Then here also with the white roof, definitely this off-roadish look. However, in comparison to the Dacia Duster, this one is definitely way more road focused. And then you can also go for a GS line with larger wheels and a sporty design overall, if you prefer that, for example. The length here is 4,39 meters or 173 inches. So indeed, rather short, compact, good for the city and so on. And you see this upright building style. You can see the rear signature from the tail lamps, and when I hit the brake, that you also see how it looks like then. And last but not least, I can of course also hit the turning indicators. There we go. Yeah, this is, let's say, a more simplified design. Other than that, big lettering Frontera here, so a modern look here as for this case. And in the front, pretty cool over here with the indicator signature. And let's talk about the engines. So there we go, let's open that thing. We have here the 1.2 liter 3-cylinder petrol hybrid, 48 volt mild hybrid, so to speak, and available in two different horsepower specs: 100 horsepower or 136 horsepower, 9 seconds or 11 seconds in the acceleration figure. And the electric version would be 12 seconds, so even slower to 100. However, it's quick from the get-go, like from standstill. The electric version with the 44 kilowatt hour net battery, so also rather focused on city driving and so on. And also the top speed with the EV is 140 kilometers an hour. Whereas here with the petrol electrified one, that one is 180 kilometers an hour, so 112 miles per hour, or here with the 136 horsepower version, even 190 kilometers an hour. So that one then also gets the German Autobahn stamp. To see the key fob, and yeah, you indeed need this here. It's always like bang. So then door closing sound. Not too bad, really. Yeah, I think we can easily live with that. Then inside of the doors, there's all hard pack here everywhere, but at least you have this cover element here in the top part, which is not bad, you know.
I think this is funny. Yeah.
And this is funny, yeah. You like visible screws here. That's cool. Then you have steering wheel. It's all animal-free material. Feels really nice. Also with a modern Opel design. Rear buttons also still at the steering wheel, for example. Zoom out to the digital instruments and the infotainment. Seats here, very interesting that you get base fabric seats or these here, so some gray elements, and these are also the special seats. They're optional in the comfort package. Here they have this slot here, and this is to relieve pressure from this middle area and supposed to increase seating comfort. So yeah, that's very interesting. So let's take a seat. Take a seat, young Skywalker. And I feel that the lower area is indeed very comfortable. So that works very well. The only thing is, as a tall person, you need to push the back part of the seat relatively far behind that you find a comfortable seating position, but you still have space then here in the back seat. So from the length and so on, it could be a little bit better for tall persons. But if you're not as tall as me, you'll probably be really happy with this seating. And then here, headroom with 189, 602, a lot of headroom left. So this upright building style then really pays off. And the steering wheel here, up and down, in and out. Yeah, and as I said, the material choice here is really nice, both on the steering wheel and on the seats. So pretty cool. And then we had this visible screw area there. you have more visible stuff, like where something is attached, like here, for example, at the inside ceiling. You have here, there we can see how the ceiling is attached here and also right there. So yeah, but maybe that also makes the car more likable in a way, or what's your take on that? Yes, this is still happening. Here to turn on the ignition with putting the key in manual. So, muted. So then the cockpit overview. It's very interesting. First of all, a structured dashboard here, so that is well done. Then you can put also some things right here. Then you have this decor element. Once again, also for the passenger, you have this slot design right here. And also interesting design elements here with the strap here, for example, at the side to like finish the cup holders on one side. I mean, why not? And we still have physical dials. For example, here for the temperature, you could also not miss them, like blindfold basically. Seat heating, steering heating works when the engine is running, and the fan speed on the right side. So good to have these physical dials here still. And then you either can get an infotainment screen here on the right side as it is right now, or no screen at all, like in a Dacia Duster, for example. Then you would just have the digital instruments, and then on the right side you would just have a smartphone holder. That's also possible, you know, why not? Then you can also keep the amount of options a little bit lower. Then in the front here with two USB-C chargers and an inductive charging pad, not ventilated though. So and then we have some cup holders, but they're really open, so bottles might fly around here. Integration of the shifting lever is cool. Always dual clutch transmission, that's also standard in that price. And then, yeah, it's like an open cubby hole, not covered with everything. The armrest has a nice fabric cover. Here, build quality wise, let's say, yeah, basic, but more space underneath. Driver POV, once again here with the steering wheel and real buttons, for example, for the cruise control. And then here, the digital instruments, you cannot change so much in there, but you have, for example, this visualization for the hybrid drivetrain. And then on the right side, the infotainment system, if you want to have that optionally, there is a car internal GPS that is actually quite responsive. That's good. Other than that, the menu is quite basic. It's all set on the smartphone mirroring, and we have it here in a wireless CarPlay connection. But you can of course also go for Android Auto. And today's glove box test is presented by Leah. Woo. Attention. Oh. That is not dampened. Yeah, that's another thing you have to live with then if you don't want to pay so much money. And here left next to the steering wheel, press and hold to deactivate the speed limit exceeding chime. Rear seats, plastic landscape at its best actually. Yeah, but doesn't feel too bad from the surface at least. Then we also have design-wise the same seats here, just that they don't have this physical gap in here in the middle part. Isofix, with these zippers here. That's peculiar. And also nice seat design here with the gray fabric. But also once again this stamped in structure here at the head restraint, for example. This here 2/3, 1/3 split, and middle two USB-C chargers. Top part, 12 volt in the lower part. Yeah, and then that's the key thing about this vehicle. Put the head restraint here. I mean, I'm 189, 6'2", you know it. And then here, a lot of headroom, and look at that, I even have space in front of my knees, and this is a short vehicle. So the usage of space is excellent. There, this upright building concept plays a good role, and it is really spacious and comfortable here in the rear, and more spacious and more comfortable than many cars that are this longer than this one here. So this is the good thing about this vehicle. And yeah, indeed, there are versions for the petrol only that offer a third seating row as well. Maybe we can show that to you at a later stage, because that's also like a very astonishing thing. Let's check out the trunk. 460 litre. That sounds a little bit tinny, right? However, you know, it's lower in the price, so I think some things we have to live with. However, there's good space. So maybe for, first of all, I can also remove this cover right here. Then we have a better look. It's just not that easy to get it out. Just thinking about like the most practical way for that. I mean, the stuff is so large that, what the hell? There we go.
Oh wow,
Yeah, so,
that's a big one.
but now you can see that this is actually quite large for such a small vehicle. Here, this also fits in easily, and then in the width, good meter of 40 inches, 85 centimeters, 33 inches in length, and the height here is 74 centimeters or 29 inches, so that is massive, but even goes further. You can put this one here into a lower stage, like this, and then you even have, and that is amazing here, 90 centimeters or 35 inches, wow. Or you can also take that whole thing out. Yeah, this is really funny here today. So this is enormous, and then you can also maybe imagine that this is also available as a 7-seater. Then you can fold seats up here. However, then there will be no trunk left, and it's of course more for small children in the rear. So there we go, and then we can also fold that thing here. So, and then, I mean, here we do have a step. I can also show you once again how it looks like when I put this in again. And yeah, this looks like a crazy professor here when I'm doing that with the ruler. So here we go. So the length is here at 1 meter 65 or 65 inches. And now you might say, this big step, but when you put this one in again, then see here, you have a relatively even transition. Let's go. Woo! It was 30 to 90 kilometers an hour acceleration here with the Opel or Vauxhall Frontera, 136 horsepower, petrol hybrid or petrol MHEV. So the strongest petrol you can get so far, and this is also the one with the quickest acceleration indeed. So all the other versions, the other lower horsepower petrol of course is slower, and also the electric version is slower. So it's 9 seconds for this one, 11 seconds for the other petrol, and 12 seconds for the electric one, and all front-wheel drive. It's still, of course, not a quick one, but it's also quicker than the Dacia Duster, for example. So the Germans put some more power here in their German Dacia Duster, so to speak. And starting driving, I immediately have to say, like, how you feel, like from the seats and so on. I feel it feels a little bit more sophisticated than the Dacia Duster. However, it feels also a little bit more narrow while driving. So especially as a tall person, the Duster has more space, like here, like for your legs and for your knees and so on. So it's pro and con, definitely. And here at about 90 kilometers an hour, so like 55 miles an hour. So far, all nice and silent. We also have the 16-inch wheels mounted here on our vehicle, these off-road steel rims. I like them pretty much in the look, actually. And the good thing is that they also give us more comfort. The suspension is also rather soft, but the thing is that it evens out the bumps then quite well. And this hybrid or mild hybrid powertrain here, you can also have this visual gauge right there. So for example, when I get off the throttle, here I also can use some recuperation. And then when I'm just slightly on the throttle, then I'm driving electric. And then you see it here, like when the combustion engine block there is in lighter gray, then the engine hops on again. So it goes a little bit back and forth, and by that you can also save some fuel. And especially if you have some parking maneuvers or something like that, you can sometimes do them all electric indeed. Let's accelerate more, 90 to 120. Well, this 90 to 110, because there's A1 there in the front, cancelled it for us. But you see here, due to that turbo you have, it's still reasonable, so you have enough power for most situations, at least with this power version. Would I go for the version where you have less power? Probably not. I mean, the electric version is from the get-go, it's of course fine, always with these electric drivetrains. But then, of course, the quicker you drive, the less power it will actually have in the output. And here, Spanish motorways here on the island of Majorca, it's not such an issue that you can't drive that fast with the electric version. It's at 140 kilometers an hour max. This one here at 190 kilometers an hour. So this is then German Autobahn proof, so to speak. So that would be like 115 miles per hour this can go. If I would drive that quick with that car, it's maybe something else. We have to test it probably on a German Autobahn once more. Let's also check the assistance systems. So here I can also set a cruise control. There we go. Increase the speed here. Left side decrease. So that's actually possible. Interesting turning indicator sound. That's funny for sure. Yeah, but here it's more or less basic from the assistance systems. Steering wheel has a good feel to it actually, and also the steering itself is nice. You don't have any dead zone area. You have a good feeling for the vehicle indeed. Now let's put it here into the corner. You have this rather upright seating position, so although it's not like a strong off-roader or something, you do get some kind of off-roadish feeling, and that's always fun, you know. So I like off-road vehicles, and I also like this more upright building style. Not everything has to be sporty. When you want to adjust the seat, by the way, here while driving a little bit, that's not that easy to do because of that lever here, and then you maybe heard that you also easily scratch your watch, or if it's a good watch, the watch scratches the plastic in that case. But the overall feeling here of this car is likable because it's small, it's upright, it's soft in suspension, and you know you can squeeze through every city corner and so on. In this hybrid drivetrain here, I mean, sometimes you don't even hear the engine, so most people probably won't check that one while driving regularly, but here, of course, for our testing purposes, it's actually quite nice. And you know that when you're on the brakes or when you're going downhill or something, you can always gain back some of that energy here at least. Overview is actually also very decent since you have this upright building style. You can see everything that's around you very well, and that's very rare nowadays in the automotive industry, where all the designs have been more coupe-ified and there are just tiny windows left. Here, still a very good overview. I mean, even like typical shoulder view is perfect because I can see literally everything. Here now again, slower speed. There was a moment where the combustion engine went off. Now it went on again. So yeah, it really goes back and forth. At the end of the time, at the end of the day, hopefully not at the end of the time. At the end of the day, you will get used to that and just let the engine do its thing. Yeah, here for example now, it's silent, it's off again. Yeah, of course that feeling you would have with the EV all the time, but then again the question is for charging infrastructure. And remember, this hybrid drivetrain here is also less expensive in the purchase price. So it always then depends, of course, on the taxation in your country, what actually makes most sense. The car internal GPS, which we are also testing here, let's say it's not too slow. The overview, how we can see things, is okay. Yeah, most of the time you will probably end up using Google Maps or Waze or Apple Maps anyway. But that of course also counts for all the different cars. It's nice when they paint the lines really, really narrow. Here, because the car is so small, you think like, we exactly fit in here, you know, it's no problem. And here's a situation like that, some traffic, then some energy is being gained back, silence. And here, for example, when other cars are passing us, I think it's for a budget car, relatively silent here on the interior, right? So really like, also when we're driving a little bit higher speed and so on. So really like that. I feel as for the noise installation, they're doing a better job than with the Dacia Duster. The Duster has a little bit more off-roadish feeling to it because it's even higher from the suspension, and to me offers a little bit more seating space. However, here the seats themselves while driving are actually nice. Do you feel this gap design when we're driving, like this, that you have this gap, like
I feel it, yeah.
that's supposed like take the pressure off, but it's actually quite good, right?
Yeah,
So the seats itself themselves are actually quite nice.
Yeah.
So that's actually good. Here also when the cars are passing us, it's not that we would hear the rolling noise or something that much. And I really have to say that the rather soft suspension setup does the car very well. It fits to the vehicle, and we would not race this car somewhere, you know, and it's actually fine. And here steering feel is once again really nice, also when you go a little bit right and left and so on. When you go for the 17-inch wheels, you will have a little bit sportier feeling of the vehicle, maybe lose a little bit of comfort, but both wheels are not the biggest ones, but you can vary it a little bit with that. And here also the 16-inch wheels, steel wheels we drive here, are of course less prone to scratches, damages, and so on. So you don't have to be, that's a nice color here for the Mini, right? You don't have to be that careful then when you're driving with these smaller wheels here. So yeah, I mean, as a tall driver, I feel a little bit cramped in here anyways, you know. Yes, I have a lot of headroom, that's no problem. But you know, the seat itself and the position here with the knees and so on, so at some point you do still feel that it's a small car. Probably you would not when you're a little bit smaller than me, but that of course always depends. Here, let me do a lane change here. Now we're going a little bit quicker again. Car doesn't shake up too much, and even if I like try to push the vehicle, it doesn't shake up too much. And although we have the small wheels here, like I would say, like the Dacia Duster has a more wobbly kind of character when driving. So this one here conveys more contact to the road. But then again, the Dacia Duster, of course, has the real off-road capabilities. Here, the Frontera, it comes from this off-road styling in the previous generation. Then a lot of years where this name was absolutely gone. But here, once again, at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, it's doing a fairly good job on the motorway. So from the noise insulation, also from the riding comfort and suspension, I think they found a nice setup here that you have enough comfort, but they don't get too soft. Here, one more lane change. It's actually astonishingly comfortable. So if you consider the price, what you can get this car for, I think that's a quite interesting offer. You know, there are hardly any cars anymore that are under 30,000 euros. And here, yeah, you can get this one over 30,000 when you really spec it full to the max. But you can also already get one for 25 and have more or less the same experience and so on. And yeah, a lot of materials we see in touch and feel and so on are also quite nice. I still have good control over the car also while driving, so I can increase the temperature, lower the temperature here easily with a physical dial as well. So that's all fine. And I think we could also live without this screen here while driving. You know, there is this version where you can just attach your phone here and there's no screen, and why not? That would also work if you say you don't use the phone projection but you just have it directly on your phone. That's also possible when it's in a practical holder here. Leah,
Yep.
the viewers are awaiting your verdict. So my question is, if you then can come a little bit closer to the mic also. Do you feel that this is a very, very cheap budget car?
Little bit, yeah.
You still feel it?
Yeah.
But,
Feel
yeah.
it. But it's better than the Dacia Duster.
Ah.
Therefore, yeah.
So, yeah, I said the Germans are onto something here with building their Dacia Duster. And yeah, for all the off-road hardcore fans, the Dacia Duster, of course, is still like the cheapest way to go off-road, yes. But everyone who uses it more on the road, this one here, driving-wise, is definitely way more road-focused than the Dacia Duster. And that's why it's also better on the road, indeed. And especially if you're not as tall as we are, then you'll be even more comfortable also in these seats, because the seats from general are really good. It's just that, I don't know, I also fall backwards a little bit. Maybe when I pump it up a little bit more, that's more comfortable. But you sit relatively high in general in that vehicle, and that also accounts for this fun feeling. Especially for the EV, that might also be a CD value problem. For the petrol engines here, of course, it's not the biggest deal then, you know, when we have a little bit more wind resistance. Because when we're driving a little quicker, the engine is also more in an optimum state of combustion here, like in 80 kilometers an hour, something like that. You know, the road gets a little bit rougher, but suspension masters that well. So it's definitely really a small, fun vehicle. That's really the most positive one about this here. Fuel economy, 6 liters on 100 kilometers we had on our test drive today. So 39 mpg US and 47 mpg UK. Could be a little bit better here for such a small vehicle. The hybrid system, of course, brings you some advantages. And then again, the Dacia Duster had a higher fuel consumption here in our recent test, for example, in most situations at least. And this one is, of course, a little bit more powerful, so definitely more road suitable than the Dacia Duster. Also feels a little bit more sophisticated while driving. That's what I found out. So indeed, I feel that the Germans here, or than the British when it's Vauxhall, you know, but it's of course built, you know, under the Opel umbrella. Then again, under the whole Stellantis Corporation umbrella, you also have to say. So then you could also say this is the French Duster because it's also the Citroën C3. Then again, the Dacia is Romanian, but also under the Renault French umbrella. Yeah, whatever. You see that the automotive industry is really global these days. So yeah, that is of course more like this catching phrase of this review. But I really have to say, this is a more road-focused, off-roadish looking vehicle, and it drives astonishingly well considering its price. And when we talk about pricing, 24,000 euros would be the entry price in Germany. 25,700 when you go for the higher horsepower spec, which is still quite okay. I mean, hardly any other vehicles are that affordable these days. And then when you put some extras in it, you can also get to about 30,000 euros. But that's also possible with the Dacia Duster, for example. The EV version, however, that is always more expensive at 29,000 euros at least. So this one here will be some 5,000 euros less expensive in the entry trim when you go for the petrol hybrid. So you always have to see, in some countries, of course, the EV will be less expensive because of taxation and so on. When you think about like Netherlands, Belgium, and also the Scandinavian countries, there, of course, the EV version will prevail. In most of the southern European countries, this will definitely here be the thing. But looking forward to your opinion. Would you pick this one instead of a Dacia Duster? And would you go for the hybrid or the petrol mild hybrid or for the EV? Tell me in the comments. And now check out more affordable car reviews.